Hello and welcome to another Sarasalandcast. I am your host, Reroll Zero, and today we'll be talking about three topics: Disney Dreamlight Valley, the Super Mario movie trailer, and NHK Blends. Um, so let's get on. Let's go get talking about the first part, Disney Dreamlight Valley. Disney Dreamlight Valley is a very it released very recently, and even though there's been minor hiccups and bugs, it's pretty solid, honestly. I know, to be super fair, I never played any Animal Crossing or Harvest Moon for that matter. Just, there's always kind of been franchises kind of stuck in your head. Not so much that you play them, but you heard them so much that it's kind of cultural osmosis, where you kind of you haven't you don't have actual knowledge of said franchise, but you've heard it enough from other people that you're like, okay, yeah, I know what that's about. Other than that, I think straight up, it's a great game, and I have I've already reached max level, and I think this is something that I wanted from like Nintendo for the longest time, because you kind of just hang out and you kind of just hang out with Disney characters, and they kind of had that with Nintendo Land, but at the same time, Nintendo Land is kind of, forgive me for, it's kind of flaccid, in the sense of, one you needed the Wii Motion Plus for a lot of the extra activities, like the Legend of Zelda like crossbow stuff, or the bow stuff, like the Link crossbow training, which kind of came with, I think, the Wii Motion Plus. But also the fact that so many like iconic franchises that Nintendo put forward for that product, again, they were just kind of off-putting, is the is the least I can put it, because the Metroid one was like one of the more presentable ones, but it kind of like fell flat. I kind of like, the saddest thing is, like, before I got to play a proper Metroid first, well, I think the funniest thing is, I think I played the Metroid trial, or the those snapshots on the Smash Brothers Brawl, because they had, like, not like 5 seconds, but like a demo or trial of each iconic game, and I think I tried Metroid first on that, and then through Nintendo Land, unfortunately. But I think almost even before that, or in the middle, I tried what's it called? I tried Metroid Prime 3, and I didn't like it very much. But then 2016, I really, sorry, this is a really bad tangent, but and this is still, I'm trying to connect back to Nintendo Land, back to Disney Dreamlight Valley. But anyway, tried Metroid Prime 3, and then 2016, I Metroid Fusion, or I think for the 30th anniversary, and Metroid Fusion was like, if you spend X amount of gold points or whatever for the Nintendo rewards program, you can get Metroid Fusion. And I was like, okay, well, might as well buy Star Fox Zero. I know that's a bad idea. Buy Star Fox Zero, because I was really interested in Star Fox Zero, and then I get Metroid, because I asked my friend, because he was still hanging out in town at the time. I was like, is Metroid Fusion good? And he said, yeah, it's pretty good. And I'm like, okay. And then when I played Metroid Fusion, I was just like I was so in awe of it. It's really like a masterclass of what you should. The funny thing is, I played so many the shoot 'em ups. Like, I love Metal Slug. I tried Contra, once or twice, but yeah, this like Metroid Fusion, and then subsequently I tried Zero Mission and Super, and then I tried Metroid Primes 1. I think I finished Fusion first, then Super, then Zero Mission, I think. And I know it's probably for the like most. Unfortunately, when I was playing Metroid, I was I think it was like for this, the sexist reason of like, of a guy like you want to see Samus in the Zero Suit, right? And when I played Zero Mission and I got to that point, I was like, this is the most garbage feature in a game ever, and that was not fun at all. And like, I just was like, this is absolute garbage, and I dislike Zero Mission even more for that. And like, sorry, this is turning into Metroid. Or let's talk about Metroid. And but then yeah, Zero Mission would probably be my least favorite for 2D Metroid excursions. And even though I know it's like they wanted to bring back the first game and have it, retelling it for a modern audience. It's kind of like the Link to the Past 4 Sword for the Game Boy Advance, and the other Link to the Past, like, not fan game, but the like modern one on DS that was I think it was called Link Between Worlds, and it was like a 2D aesthetic almost, or the same like, go to same or top down room, etc. Anyway, sorry, I gotta get back to the task at hand. Gotta finish my thoughts on Metroid. So yeah, I played Metroid Prime 1. I played Metroid Prime 2. I finished 1 and 2. I never finished Metroid Prime 3 because this was, I don't know if I brought this up in the Metroid, in both Metroid videos, just the Metroid series in general, and the inherent sexism of Nintendo making a Metroid game, right? Is that when I play Metroid Prime 2, that's easily my favorite Metroid game, because I know it's like a lot of people say it's difficult, and I feel like the most difficult part of that game is the stupid one of the Ing bosses in like the middle of the game, kind of before the Techno City or whatever, or that's, I guess, Techno Cybernetics. I can't like really it's a really cool place, and like I was kind of bummed that like seeing that that there was never a crossover between Phantasy Star Online and Metroid, because Phantasy Star Online, the third area, the mines, there's like very similar areas that kind of look like the Metroid Prime 2's like third dungeon slash third like biosphere. Like there's the normal desert area, if I remember correctly, for Aether, and then there's a swamp, Torvus Bog, if I'm not too mistaken. I could be wrong. That could be for Metroid 1. And then there's this third technological area, and that's kind of where that's kind of your third dungeon type thing. Anyway, but yeah, Metroid, like, okay, Metroid 2D and Metroid Prime 1, they have the wave beam, the ice beam, and the plasma beam. They kind of take that literally in Metroid Prime 1, which is great, so that they have elements associated with them. So plasma is technically fire, the ice beam is the ice beam, and the wave beam is like technically electricity. So they kind of take that again, they kind of turn it on its head almost, and they have the light beam, the dark beam, and like the antimatter beam, if I remember correctly, for Metroid Prime 2. But that's like the light beam is kind of like a rainbow beam as well, so that's kind of almost like Metroid or Super Metroid, where she uses the rainbow beam on Mother Brain. Sorry, kind of spoilers. I absolutely love Metroid. But yeah, when I played Metroid Fusion, I was absolutely hooked. Sorry. So yeah, I love Metroid. I kind of, again, like, I think I always wanted to play it. I know I had some douchebag friends. Pre-middle school. I met my best friends in middle school, so pre-middle school. But they had Metroid Prime, and I think I was always jealous because I probably wanted to play it, but just that those kinds of friends where like they kind of have everything, but they're when you kind of look back on it, they're kind of probably the most miserable kids in the world because their parents are like they either don't pay attention to them or they think the obvious choice is to supply them with gifts because that's an excuse in parenting instead of spending time with them. Because a lot of times, sorry, I know this is getting way off topic. A lot of times when like when they're said like, oh, like violence in video games, or this kid turned out this way because of video games, or some other media, it's really just because the parents didn't pay enough attention to them, or at the very least the parents are scapegoating too easily because there's flaws in their parenting and they don't want to contradict themselves or look like a hypocrite. So yeah, I've played Metroid. So I mean, unfortunately, I started out the wrong foot and for Metroid, but then I absolutely love Metroid. And then going back to Nintendo Land, like yeah, Metroid's not great. Or I mean, sorry, the Metroid like park thing idea is not great for Nintendo Land. The Legend of Zelda is kind of off. The Mario thing, if I remember correctly, it's like the Donkey Kong first arcade game, and it's like it's just like the 75 meters or 72 meters, where it's just Donkey Kong on top, the construction site. And other than that, there's not too much going on, which is kind of sad. The funniest thing is the F-Zero stage, which again, a lot of people want F-Zero, was probably the most competent, but at the same time, that's not saying much considering that it's Nintendo Land of all things. So, I mean, sorry, I went on a wild tangent, or wild tangents. In all seriousness, yeah, Disney Dreamlight Valley is what honestly Nintendo Land should have been. Just hanging out with iconic characters and just kind of yucking it up and all that. And they kind of do that in a sense with Mario and Sonic at the the Olympic Games, but even then, that's not really like some of those games are fun. Like I have Mario and Sonic 2016 Rio. And the archery is really solid, and I like the rugby's kind of surprisingly fun too. But I think archery and the equestrian events I really like too. But at the same time, like that's great, but I kind of wish it was like Mario Sports Mix, because Mario Sports Mix is really solid. Hang on, let me turn on the light. It's dark while I'm recording. I'm recording late, so anyway. Mario and Sonic, the basketball and the hockey are really solid. They may seem like they're kind of slapped together in like a really unintelligent manner, but no, they're really solid. And like and dodgeball is really solid too. The funny thing is, I think I played Rio 2016. I played volleyball from that. And I was like, okay, that's pretty good. And then I played volleyball in Mario Sports Mix, and I just was like, I don't know about this. Because I think it's like you have to kind of stand under it and then hit it. Whereas, the other basketball, hockey, and dodgeball, you could move freely instead of being where the, ball needs to be and all that. So, other than that, okay, so, again, I wanted Nintendo Land to essentially be, Disney Dreamlight Valley, where you go crops, you have magical powers, you cook, you dig, you mine, you build stuff. Like, that's cool. You kind of had build stuff in Nintendo Land, but that was more like a floating cube, and you unlocked music tracks and such, which is not a bad idea, but it's just like, or not bad in concept, but just bad in execution, because Nintendo Land really was, I'm not trying to say it was a disappointment, but for a launch game, that's really dire, especially since Wii Sports and like other ones have been such a better step in the right direction. Yeah, Disney Dreamlight Valley. I put it in the picture, and this was another thing. Or sorry, I'm slurring a lot. I mean, I've slurred a lot of words. I'm talking so fast that I can't enunciate properly. Disney Dreamlight Valley is also kind of what I wanted Kingdom Hearts to be, because yes, Kingdom Hearts is something where it's a good crossover, but at the same time, it leaves you kind of wanting more, because I realize that going back and looking and because I already played Kingdom Hearts 2, and Kingdom Hearts 2 is probably I would say the magnum opus of the series, because I know it's like a lot of people are like they criticize Kingdom Hearts 2 for everybody liking it too much, and I kind of understand that, but at the same time, like, it's the least frustrating one. Kingdom Hearts 1, I can't take Sora's clown shoes seriously, and I mean he has his clown shoes throughout the series because his feet are probably huge. But another thing is, with the Disney characters, Disney is always that is always bait and switch in the Kingdom Hearts series, because you'll have them at the start and have them be important, but then they don't really play a huge part of the plot in importance. Like, they're there in almost like words only. Like Kingdom Hearts 1, it has like Cinderella or Aurora, right? Or like in those like tubes or chambers, but they're kind of just there. They don't exactly have lines, and yeah, I mean, even when they have lines, right? They, like what I'm saying, they still don't play a huge part. Like, I think the worst one in Kingdom Hearts 1, like, I don't like Pinocchio, I don't like Bambi, I don't like Dumbo. What's another one that's kind of like Peter Pan is another one where it's a classic Disney property, but I could care less about it, because again, it's just kind of like generic fantasy, like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, where people are like, oh, it's so good, but then they don't really do anything, and like it kind of falls into the same Dungeons and Dragons like archetype where, oh, all the ugly races or different races are evil, like the orcs or the goblins, and yeah, it's always for the fantasy alignment races or fantasy alliance races. It's human, elves, and dwarfs, and yeah, that's it. Anyway, sorry, going back to the task at hand. But yeah, for Kingdom Hearts 1, I would say the worst is Tarzan's World, because there's no Phil Collins. Same thing with Disney's or Kingdom Hearts Melody and Memory, which I was, again, I was so disappointed that there's so little Disney music except for the world music from each stage from Kingdom Hearts. Like the This Is Halloween is just the remix version from both Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2. And yeah, it's like you could have had actual Disney music in there, but it's just kind of like, for Melody and Memory at least. But again, either Disney is really stingy or just somebody else is really stingy with the copyright. But anyway, what I mean by the bait and switch thing is that Tarzan is that there's sections of the jungle, right? But then you don't really do much, and same thing almost with Hercules is that you don't really do much in the story. and then you're kind of one and done, and they don't get to come with you. And even if they had a problem with party management where you could only have 3 at a time anyway, and you still have to control Sora, which is kind of funny. That MMO, or not MMO, Japanese RPGs, I think, do that all the time, which I kind of get it, because Kingdom Hearts is like a character action hack and slash type dealy, like Dynasty Warriors or Devil May Cry, etc. A 3D beat 'em up type thing where there's lots of dudes you can beat up, or Ninja Gaiden. But at the same time, it really behooved the genre if you had somebody else to switch to, because again, it gets to the point where, sure, they're the main character and all, but at the same time, it gets really boring being the same character with no personality like Sora, and just I kind of get that in a sense too, that it's kind of a blank slate where you kind of where it's like, oh, you're the character, right? But again, I don't know. I don't like Sora. But yeah, it's just like with the Disney properties, you just one and done their world, and then in the sense of Kingdom Hearts 2, you go back, and I think they barely have any new dialogue, and yeah, what makes it even worse for Kingdom Hearts 3 is that there's Toy Story and there's Monsters Inc., but again, there's no iconic tracks from them except for again, Disney's Frozen from Let It Go. And that's about it, because again, you would expect the Randy Newman, or again, the kind of jazz ensemble from Monsters Inc., at least in the sense of the intro or the starting animation with the doors. And yeah, so I think Disney Dreamlight again does that better, where the Disney property or Disney characters they're not one and done, that once you complete their quest, they just hang out in the valley and you get to hang out with them and make them food, etc. So that's such a better idea than Kingdom Hearts, and I kind of wish I kind of hope, or hopefully, that Disney's Dreamlight Valley is here to stay for a while. That it won't become Marvel Heroes Omega, where Disney will shut that down. Or the funny thing is, I was asking a friend of ours, because I was really hyped about Multiverses, and then Multiverses, it seems honestly that's kind of dead. There's they had Marvin the Martian, but then they didn't add anything else new, so I'm just okay, well, I'm not sure about that game, but it feels like it's done. There's no more. It's 343 calling it quits in that survey question recently. But anyway, that's what I kind of want to switch gears as well. That I think Disney Dreamlight Valley still has a lot of. I mean, they updated a roadmap too, which is always scary, because Star Wars did that, and Star Wars took or Star Wars Battlefront 2 took 1,000,000 years to get out 4 characters, or technically 6. Well, technically 8 characters if you count Finn and Phasma, which should have been in the game at launch, but they took their sweet ass time. But yeah, Star Wars Battlefront, it was such a slog to get anything, and I think probably still the worst edition is Anakin, because Anakin has 4 abilities versus everyone else that has 3. But anyway, enough griping about Star Wars, or at least Battlefront and Disney Dreamlight Valley. Disney Dreamlight Valley is great. Hopefully, again, they'll have a faster, they'll start updating more stuff soon. I mean, granted, they said they'll update in February, or at least in Kanto and Olaf. So, That's pretty solid as well. Um, okay, and the next topic for me is the Super Mario movie trailer. Um, when watching it the first time, when it's just kind of almost like Mario and such. Sorry, I gotta my nose. Um, that's all just Mario and Toad and Bowser and those the little penguins. Like, I think a lot of people are criticizing it just because of Chris Pratt's voice, but it probably looks like one of the most solid things like I ever seen. Um, Specifically speaking, like um, as each trailer or each little snippet that they're like like drip feeding through like an IV is like that next trailer it showed Peach and Peach is more proactive, which is great. It's honestly again like kind of like Disney Dreamlight Valley. It's kind of something I always wanted. Where even though Princess Daisy isn't in the movie with Peach there, that kind of and her being way more proactive, that there might be a chance for Daisy to be in the next movie because I think the movie's going to do well, or at the very least be be critically loved and then maybe hated by the audience, or maybe critically critically not loved but loved by the audience. So I don't know which is better or worse. So only time will tell. Um, but I feel like they're combining it a lot, and again I'm surprised because I figured it was just gonna be a like straightforward Mario story where kind of like where like if they're like same thing with like most video game movies, if they're adapting a movie or a video game into a movie, that they would kind of just take the base game and kind of make a script off based off that. So just Mario, Toad, Peach, and Bowser. But they have Donkey Kong, they have Cranky Kong, um, in the second trailer. I mean, that's from the second trailer as well. But also they have, the Mario Kart. So I'm honest. I was mostly surprised at that because I wouldn't expect that, especially for like a movie. A movie should be like an hour, 2 hours long, not a 3 hour Peter Jackson not a 3 hour I wasted my money for this 3 hour dog shit a movie, because that's a big commitment, 3 hours at least for a movie. I know it's like same thing with video games that you work forever on it and then it's condensed in like an hour or 2 3 or 2 3 days, like I think Final Fantasy X it's like 72 hours for the I think the entire story, and but that's about it. I think like when I played, I don't remember if I beat it with that file. I think I was up to 90 hours for a lot of the side quests and such. So but other than that, uh I think definitely it's I know it's like it's doing a lot, but at the same time that could be the same idea of too big to fail type thing. And so that's always a worry that they're doing too much, and that there won't be significant characterization and character learning and character being like, okay, either I was a problem or I understand my faults now, and will lead to a satisfactory resolution or denouement. Um, where and that's probably the most promising thing, and I don't think I've heard, at least watching video game personalities or YouTube celebrities say that, is that Mario is kind of the novice in this movie, and that's what I really appreciate, because like Peach knows what to do, and Mario is the novice, which is great because what I assume was going to happen is that they, would do the same thing that they do every time. The guy knows everything and does everything well, and there's no faults with him. But with Mario, he's the novice. He doesn't know how he doesn't know the Mushroom Kingdom yet. So it's a cool idea, and I think I hope the movie does well. Because again, that would open another sequel, and regardless of whether or not the sequel is good or not, I still think that would be great for a chance for extra characters like Princess Daisy to be part of the movie. Apparently there was a rumor that her name is name dropped, but again, like, that's a rumor, so it's it's you take it or leave it type thing. But other than that, everybody looks fantastic as well. Like, Peach, Mario, Bowser, Toad, the penguins, the Donkey Kong is a little bit I kind of understand that, like, that story where Shigeru Miyamoto, he apparently, or story / legend of where he didn't like Donkey Kong. I think two reasons is that, one, he notices that it's so close to Mario that it hurts, that it's essentially, like, almost perfect. And the second thing is, like, he sees the design and he's like, nobody wants the old design anymore. Like, like Donkey Kong Jr. and Donkey Kong originally. Like, that's old hat. Like, the Donkey Kong from Super Mario Kart, or Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo, they're never going to go back to that because they want the Jimmy Neutron hippie dippy hair type thing, the chocolate swirl as it was. But anyway, so yeah, Donkey Kong looks a little bit off, but that's okay. Cranky is there as well, so, like, they have so much in the movie that it's just, again, like, it's just same thing with the penguins. I wouldn't have thought that they would be reprised for another one-time off enemy. Same thing with Mario Kart Tour, the latest one with Thailand, is that on some of the stages they're littered with the crab enemies, and I was like, wow, I'm surprised, because the crab enemies were in the Mario Bros. Multiplayer, or not multiplayer, but 2-player game, where they're kind of one of the first enemies that you encounter, and you hit them out of the arena. And I was just surprised that, like, for a significant pull from enemy or ally type thing, like, the penguins, I'm surprised the penguins are a thing that they're going for, which is great. I mean, even though it's probably only be like 15, 30 a minute of footage in the intro of the movie, but again, like, that's still something rather than nothing. So the latest trailer too is called Smash, and that's when Mario is fighting Donkey Kong, at least from the first or the second trailer. And they show, and apparently I haven't seen the third trailer yet, but they show him in the cat suit, and I was just like, wow, that's another surprise, because I know that's the one thing they were pushing in 3D World, but at the same time, I'm just surprised because they're kind of going in all directions, and it's impressive, but again, I'm kind of I get slightly worried because you don't want to do too much, and then A, there's not room for a sequel, and B, that's that it does too much, and that you just kind of want a simple movie. Kind of like with Illuminations, like, probably Despicable Me 1 is probably solid. No, yeah, Despicable Me 1 is solid. I think Secret Life of Pets is fine. I haven't seen Sing. I imagine it's probably good. And what else? There was one other one that Illumination put forward, and it's passable. But yeah, I know Minions, Despicable Me 2 and 3, and like that's kind of like the point where it's it's such a cash cow now that like they can do anything and still make money type thing. Like you get so good at your job that you don't really care about it doing more, and you kind of lose the heart of why you started in the first place. But I definitely think with Illumination, I think they're gonna do a good job. I think they definitely want to. I know there's Detective Pikachu and there's Sonic, and those movies did incredibly well. Or at least in the sense of a video game movie, instead of being, schlock like Assassin's Creed, Blood Rain, Hitman, etc. Or House of the Dead, Resident Evil. The list goes on. I think it's probably those movies are probably so generic because the two or three that I listed all involve firearms, and then Assassin's Creed is like a really, or not a fantastic concept, or at least I guess a better concept for the old world stuff. The Animus and all that, I'm not, that always seeks to muddle the narrative and makes it worse. Same thing with like, I don't know, the Golden Apple or whatever, the main plot point, I guess. But again, like Assassin's Creed, like that's another thing where it's like it's a fantastic idea to like spin off in a movie, but then you make it, super generic type thing. A couple people said it was good, but like, you have to see it for yourself before you decide final judgment. So, but yeah, I think the Mario movie will do well. Maybe not as like a critical darling, like it's it's gonna win awards and everything, but I think it'll do well enough that it warrants a sequel, and that Illumination will do a good job. And for the last subject of tonight is a thing I think I've brought up in the past at least once. It's called NHK Blends, and I started watching NHK a lot when I was going back to college in 2016, 2017. I'm recently going back to college again because I not so much that it's the right thing to do, but because I want to get a degree, and it's not so much for myself, it's kind of for my mom, because I kind of hate the idea of I understand the need for a college system and vetting and education, because again we need doctors and scientists and immunologists and everybody that makes significant strides in science to help the betterment of people, but not advocating for like dipshits like Elon Musk and that whether or not, and Mark Zuckerberg, that whether or not they went to college, they still like are so rich beyond their their existence that's almost like an anomaly type thing. It's like a black hole where all meaning, all kinds of existence is kind of just goes through and then doesn't come out right the same way. But yeah, but I think I dread or loathe that, like, same thing with getting a job, that you have to get the piece of paper because people won't take you seriously without the piece of paper, because that's what our society is built on, rules and regulations, which is fine considering if it's a high stress environment, like, I don't know, rocket scientist, or I mean an engineer, or like a computer scientist, or civil engineering, actual construction worker, anything that requires doing, or anything that requires great skill is needed a piece of paper, which is fine for the high end stress jobs. But like for a plumber or something, yes, I understand the need for education and that, and learning to get that as well. But again, I always have a problem with U.S. education, because again, it's not free. Again, education is free in other countries because they value that, instead of all the all the for-profit colleges and community colleges and universities saying like, oh, you need textbooks, you need room and board, you need all this stuff to succeed. And no, it's just because again, I know everybody needs money, and then like I don't want to go about in the semantics of money, copyright, and that money, people agree money has value, so that's why it's valuable, or that's why it's scarce because there's a limited print of it. And same thing with copyright, is that if you don't value the copyright, then is a property actually valuable? And there's all of these semantics of things are messed up, but you can't really do anything about it unless you work a while to upturn, or turn these things upside down, up in the status quo. So for the most part, but sorry, I'm getting away from what I wanted to bring up. NHK, I started watching it more and more, and I started really liking sumo, and a lot of other programs. The professionals, Venetia and Kyoto was another really solid one. Supreme Skills is really funny. I don't know if I think unfortunately they don't run Venetia anymore because I think the last episode she was losing her sight, so she might be blind by now, unfortunately. But the professionals, it was kind of Venetia was about like an older English woman living in the Kyoto countryside, and kind of detailing her day-to-day life. And the professionals is like someone in their field, like a hairdresser or a welder, for like boat metal. I like welding plates to the skeleton of the ship, essentially. It was kind of like that. I really love the professionals, especially the professionals like ending show theme song, where it was really like inspirational. But my other favorite program that unfortunately I swear they don't run anymore, and on YouTube they have a lot of the popular songs, like unfortunately Taylor Swift and Led Zeppelin. There are some good ones as well that they still have uploaded, like the Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder, and that's all I can say, because the ones I really love, there's this one by they do a cover of Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper, and they have a Japanese flute as like the main melody / singer's voice replacement, and then they have an accordion, and they have a percussionist as well, but it's kind of like bongos, kind of like wind chimes, and it comes off as really magical and such. It sounds really good. The other one that I can really recommend, if you can find it, is there is a cover of Dancing Queen by ABBA, and it's this really high pitched instrument. It's kind of small. It has a lot of pipes, kind of like a pan flute, but it has this really ear piercing sound to it. But it is also amazing because it's accompanied by a cello, and the cello almost I think they kind of swap back and forth between who has the chorus and the replacement for the singer. But it's a really great thing of like a bittersweet song, because there's the contrast of the high the high notes of it might be called show for the instrument. I'm not entirely sure, but it's really striking of that contrast of that instrument, and then the cello with its like kind of like dark, or like almost bass like quality. I know there's like there's a violin bass, but it's like the cello really sings in that accompaniment because it's kind of like kind of like bittersweet candy that they talk about, and because of Winn-Dixie, it's kind of like that where it tastes good at first and then it kind of has a bitter note at the end, and that's what it kind of boils down to, is that it's like it's weird, but it's also cool because it comes off as something, when you put it all together, it sounds amazing. So, but sorry, I didn't talk about the NHK Blends too much, but they have a lot of other accompaniments. I think they have one for Smooth Criminal. I think they have one for the James Bond theme. But again, like, I really wish they would have uploaded, or they keep uploading, or at least from the NHK, because again, like, they take, when they take people's videos down all the time, it's really annoying because they usually don't offer a replacement. So why are you taking it down? Because again, it's like, don't you technically get money from them uploading it anyway because you're claiming it? So it's, again, like I was saying, the semantics of copyright and money, and yeah. So anyway, thank you very much for watching or listening. I'm your host, Real0, signing off for the night. And again, thank you if you listen this far. So good night or good morning wherever you are. I hope you have a good rest of your day or evening.